What's going on, everybody? This is Nick Lawson from Squad Sports, and this is big episode number 157 of your sports sponsorship tip of the week.
And we won't have to cry no more. And we won't have to cry no more.
Hope everybody's having a great week. Start thinking about trigger promotions a little bit. And obviously, a lot of trigger promotions are geared toward great things our team does. And it makes sense. You want to be tied with scoring 3 goals in hockey, 3 goals in soccer, 2 assists, home runs, steal a base, all of these things, wins, all of that. I'm intrigued though, I was thinking about this today. I'm intrigued on tapping into not just the emotion of the excitement, but also in a trigger promotion, tapping into the sadness, right? The emotion that it brings, the frustration that it brings when your team does not win. I don't think that's talked about enough. And of course, sponsors, usually historically want to be tied with that winning element, right? But there's emotion there, right? There's emotion with losing. I'm a Warriors fan, lost to the Suns last night by 2. I was a little upset. Hey, how can we start this off? We were so close. The pieces were clicking together. A few bad plays here and there, and now we lost to a great team at home and lost by 2 or 4. I can't even remember anymore. But we lost the game. I was a little upset. I was thinking in that moment, what if I would have gotten some sort of trigger promotion that said, hey, we didn't win. We came up short. But here's something to help you feel better. Right? Here's something to help you cut your losses. Here's something to cheer you up for the week, right? Here's let's say it's a coffee company. Here's your coffee for Monday because we lost on Sunday, right? And I think the cool thing is you can play and riff on this a little bit. And it's going to be very, very hard to convince this. I think the hardest thing about this campaign, I think it will really work. For one thing, I think if the goal is getting sales at a sponsor location or signups or whatever that may be, I think it will work because it's going to tap into that emotion. It's a losing emotion, but it's going to tap into that emotion. Of course, you have to think it through carefully. Some cases it could backfire on you, especially if the team's doing really, really poorly. But, with that being said, you can tap into that emotion. So I think towards this goal, it's actually going to help, get that sale. But what you do have to think through is, how are we going to tap into that emotion to something positive? So again, let's say it's a coffee company. It's like, hey, Sunday was rough. We're here to brighten your Monday morning. Here's a free offer, right? For a free coffee tomorrow when they lose. Or when this NFL team loses, or same thing, here's your Sunday morning when, your team hard fought battle, lost on a Saturday, here's, a free donut tomorrow. Here's a, free Whopper tomorrow, right? And you can even you could also set it up too, where it's like, hey, if we win, you get this. If we lose though, we still understand the frustration. You can get this piece of the puzzle as well toward that. So maybe it's like, hey, here's a full breakfast if we win, but we'll get you your free coffee if we lose. I'm really intrigued on that. I think it can work. And I think the trouble that brands are going to have with it maybe is the brand connecting with losing. But I think you can really, as a brand, build and connect with a fan in the losing times, the losing games, just as much as you can with the winning, right? And I think a big piece of this too is a lot of times, because brands don't really want to be affiliated with kind of that losing piece. Honestly, sometimes as teams, we don't even want to be affiliated. We might post way less after a loss than compared to a win. There's sort of this dead space there, right? Where I'm not usually getting almost any sponsor connection and engagement when there's a loss, whether it's a close loss or not. I'm not getting any sponsor engagement there. If all of a sudden I start getting sponsor engagement with losses, I'm going to build a more emotional connection. Now that emotional connection might be like, man, yeah, we lost. I'm going to need this coffee tomorrow. This sucks. I don't want this coffee, but I guess I'll take it because we lost, right? But you can ride out. I mean, hear me out here. It kind of takes like a losing streak into building brand relationships, right? Like the cool thing on this is how can we creatively, I think the key thing with all this, you have to be creative, you have to think it through very well. But how do we creatively, right, tap into, how do we turn a losing streak into a way that you can build brand recognition and relationships with fans, right? Instead of just being like, hey, they're upset, I don't want to communicate with them. How can we take that losing and turn it into, hey, I feel for you. I understand this pain. Fandom's crazy, right? I want to help you out on a Monday morning with a coffee. I want to be able to give you 10% off, sporting good item or, hats because of this to make your, the next week a little bit brighter and better. I don't think, you have to do it creatively to where fans don't hope to lose, because then you'll get the free coffee. That's obviously just not healthy for a fan base. But if you creatively craft the message and all of that, maybe even, again, a winning and maybe a losing prize in tandem, you have two triggers for the sponsor. If you win, you get this. If you lose, it's a different prize. I wouldn't say maybe a lesser prize, but a different prize than what you're getting. Again, you can turn a losing streak into something that's going to build that relationship. The cool thing, I think this is kind of the holy grail of this, you take that losing streak, incentivize that connection, right? And then once the winning streak happens, either you already have this built in on the trigger or you totally shift it and you're just like, hey fans, we didn't lose this week. We won and we're so excited. You get 2 free coffees next week. And if they win again the following week, you'll get 3 free coffees. And now we're on that emotional roller coaster with the fan. I think this is the coolest part of this is, you're on the emotional roller coaster throughout the entire roller coaster if you piece this together right. Just the winning side is just the winning side. You're only with them when they're winning, right? If you build this trigger promotion when losing, you're building it into that emotional roller coaster. Here's the other thing. You're not just tying it to how many times somebody's going to win. You can actually drive promotion and offer redemption and connection throughout the entire season. Whether you have a good season or a bad season, you can really tie this piece in. So again, just thinking through our trigger promotions, a lot of times we only add them to positive. Of course, I'm not saying get rid of the positive, right? In fact, I am saying, like, if a sponsor has a positive, maybe you add a negative, not so great, right? It is technically a negative in losing, but a not so great. And you craft the message around, we're here with you. We understand you. We feel this. I'm going to give you something. I'm going to get you some reciprocity. Here's a free coffee the next morning because Sunday was rough because we lost. Man, it's week 2 of this, we're hoping that's not going to be the case next week. Here's another free coffee. But again, the real moment is when we shift that, hey, I've gotten this thing for losing, but then we won. We broke a losing streak. Now that excitement, you can flip that offer to then drive even more connection with that as well. So again, a little bit of a crazy idea. You have to think it through. You can't just be like, hey, we're having a losing offer. That can backfire in a few ways. But if you get creative around the messaging, you get creative around explaining to the sponsor, I want you a part of the full emotional roller coaster of the season, the highs and a little bit of the lows. And the reason why I want you on some of these lows of losing to give an offer is because when the highs come back, it's going to show fans that you've built this relationship, you're with them even at the lowest parts, and now you're kicking off. I think a lot of times we equate sponsorship with winning. Sponsorship should be equated with an engaged emotional fan base and how we pull that emotion into business results and connections with the brand sponsor. With that being the case, I see no problem with having a losing offer as long as you're crafting it to go in that full emotional roller coaster. Plus, it'd just be a cool promotion. Not too many teams, to my knowledge, do a lot of that on a losing offer. So that's your tip of the week this week. Think through what are those ways that I can add to the emotional roller coaster with maybe a losing prize, and then really dive into that, craft that so they can be a part of the full process as well. I hope one of you all in sports picks this up. I think it'd be a really cool campaign that'll turn some heads. So that's your tip of the week this week. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, keep pushing those limits within sports partnerships.